My birthday's July
Yeah, so
28th.
I was
Thanks, Meg.
1 month post ACL surgery, and I could not walk to save my life. I literally could not walk. I am traveling from Texas to Long Island. I flew to Baltimore, drove with Alex Marino. I sat in the backseat of her car with my legs out as she drove us to Meg's house on Long Island, and we surprised her. Then
The Meg Show is on full display in the dome. Let's go!
The Megan to Megan Show continues. Carney to Tyrell.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Meg Show, episode 4, week 4, and looking back on another exciting week of lacrosse. We've got a lot to get into today, so let's start off with a little bit of a game recap from last week. Meg, what were your thoughts of the Northwestern BC game? We had a rematch of last year's national championship game, and this one looked a little different than the last time these two teams met up.
yeah, so it was at Boston College outside, in February. Can't imagine that was very warm. They looked a little bit frigid out there. Um, but weather is not a factor, so rain or shine, doesn't matter. But yeah, BC hadn't really played anyone hard or challenging yet, which is pretty normal for them. They tend to start out with an easier schedule in the beginning. More local teams, I'd say, in the Northeast. And so Northwestern was their first challenge. So I was very excited to see how this was going to go. Their first competition. And Northwestern came out on top. They were very, very active on offense. They had multiple different goal scorers with a lot of goals. Izzy put up 5, Aaron 4, and Madison Taylor 3. So 3 of them had hat tricks, which is insane. I don't know. I guess BC didn't know to mark up on them, but those are their top players. So just kidding. Um, but yeah, first quarter honestly looked like it was going to be a runaway. Northwestern was up 7-2 going into the second. But as we know, BC is an explosive team in general, and especially in the second half, most especially in the fourth quarter. So couldn't really count them out in the beginning, but Northwestern did have the ability to run away with it. They were not playing scared. They had all the confidence in the world. But overall, great rematch for defending national champions, and a rematch of the national championship game. So I thought it went well. I would have loved a closer game just to make things more interesting. But honestly, not surprised Northwestern won. They have a lot of strong threats on that offense.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree with you. Watching from that first quarter when Northwestern went up 7-2, got a little nervous that we weren't really going to see a game that we were all kind of looking forward to watching. And then seeing BC, as we know, they are a team that does not stop fighting all the way to the end. And as Meg and I know all too well, how explosive this team is in the fourth quarter. So to have them kind of creep back, Northwestern kind of holding on to that lead, finishing on top, think the end score was like 14-11 or something. So ended up being a closer game than we started off with. But overall, we kind of saw a lot of things. The cold, as much as it's not a factor, they looked stiff in the first quarter there, or at least BC did. Northwestern came out hot. And something that was kind of noticeable in between the 30s, we saw a lot of turnovers in the ride, which was kind of shown on both sides. I think it kind of was more beneficial for Northwestern throughout the whole game. And it's something we haven't really seen a lot of throughout these games so far. In between the 30s, people are kind of playing it a little bit safer. You don't want to make too much contact, risk that green card. So seeing all these turnovers, we saw some knockdown passes. Looked great on both ends from both teams. And historically, both of these teams are very good between the 30s. They run hard. They're going for the ground ball. So that was a fun matchup to watch. And as we saw, the stats were pretty much even across the lines a little bit here. But something a little bit uncharacteristic that was noticeable was Northwestern didn't really have the best free position shooting day. They went 1 for 5, which I thought was a little bit out of character. BC had a better free position day for sure, going 2 for 3. And someone to note from BC who had an amazing game, and watching her, Rachel Clark, amazing game. She had 5 goals. And as a righty, she was kind of hesitant, not hesitating, but she was more floating on that left side of the crease, which is where the lefties kind of hang out. And she was in her right hand the whole time and was making some of these shots with the angles and the way that she was placing the shots. It was incredible to see. So great game to her and good win to Northwestern. I'm glad that that game was as close
Yeah.
as it was. And I think if we get to see them again down the line, I think it'll be an even better game.
Yeah, Rachel Clark is so underrated and so good. She just came out of nowhere. Literally 5 goals against defending national champions. Was not scared at all. Played with so much confidence. She always does, but she is so good. Like that was so fun to watch her just go off. But yeah, next game we had on our list was Rutgers at Princeton. Princeton did win 13-10. Um, they did turn around and lose to Yale. So depending on the ranking you were looking at for that, that would be considered an upset. However, focusing on Princeton Rutgers, Princeton won. Rainy game, really gross out, and it was at Princeton. So I don't really know. Actually, I don't really know where Princeton and Rutgers are from each other distance wise, but I want to say it was right down the road. New Jersey isn't that big of a state, so correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah,
Yeah,
Cassie
I wish
Spillis
I
once again with a great game. 5 goals, 6 ground balls, 6 draw controls, and 3 cause turnovers. She literally is everywhere and anywhere on that field doing everything. She is such a threat, whether it's on offense, the draw, defense, you name it, she's there. She's causing some sort of difference. Even the first quarter goal by Princeton in the second gave them the lead, putting Rutgers down for the first time this season. But yeah, both teams scoreless for 11 minutes, 7-5. Princeton going into half. Unfortunately, Rutgers could not claw back, but Princeton came out with the win for that game.
Yeah, just to give you an answer, I should probably know how far apart they are, but I don't.
Yeah,
However,
don't you like live there?
I live near there. I don't live there. But
Same
they are
thing.
about 30 minutes away from each other. So I would,
Whoa, that's way closer than I was picturing.
yeah, it's definitely almost an up the road game. And I kind of like this matchup. And also, again, shout out to Cassidy Spillis. I hope we say your name right. But
Our girl.
I'm excited to see you throughout the rest of your season, see where you end up. And I think, Princeton kind of just ran away with this game a little bit. And I know the score doesn't really reflect that, but they were kind of in the driver's seat the entire time. And then having that huge third quarter for them, and then holding a team like Rutgers with such a dominant offense to no goals throughout the rest of the game there for those 11 minutes. I think that's awesome. So shout out Princeton. Unfortunately, that quick turnaround with Yale, that's an Ivy League matchup. I think conference games are a little bit more fun to play than out of conference games. So I'm sure that was intense for them, and huge win for Yale though. So good to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Out of conference games and in conference games have such a different feeling. Like in conference, it has a little bit more meaning because that's your conference ranking. That's where you're going to get seeded when it comes tournament time. But yeah, I'd say obviously they're both very high value games, obviously. But I will say that in conference game has a little bit more meaning to it, unless you are playing like an out of conference game against Northwestern or Stony Brook, like someone that is in that top 10, top 15, where it holds a lot of meaning and value. But an out of conference game for BC, who they like start their seasons off with, all those out of conference games don't have as much value. And like when it comes to strength of schedule later on, when you're looking at seeding and ranking for tournament time, obviously they don't hold as much weight. So that is a good thing to point out. With that being said, next game we had was Notre Dame at North Carolina. Notre Dame did win 7-5. I am so proud of them, so happy for them. They made history for Notre Dame and Coach Halfpenny. It was Notre Dame's first win at UNC ever. So huge accomplishment for the program, the university, the team, the confidence, and just building a rep out there that they can hang, they can win. They are having an amazing season right now. So I'm excited to continue to watch them and see how they do. Was a very low scoring game, as you can tell by it being 7-5. But both defenses on both ends had an amazing game. So credit to the defense. Notre Dame goalie Lily Callahan matched her career high with 14 saves. That is insane.
14
14 against
saves.
North Carolina.
And I'm pretty sure she just earned herself Player of the Week or something for ACC. I have to look back into it, but I'm pretty sure she just earned an award that she was very, very deserving of. She stood on her head in that game. Honestly, the whole defense did, but shout out to Lily Callahan. Amazing game. So, just to kind of get into this game a little bit, watching it, beautiful weather down there as it looked. The day before, watching the weather down there between Duke men's and UNC men's also played, it was torrential downpour. So,
Disgusting. I feel like it's always raining there.
yeah,
Always.
it can't catch it on a good day sometimes, but Notre Dame caught them on a great day. But quarter one, the first 12 minutes, nobody scored. Not to say that's a lot of up and down, but that is a lot of up and down. You have the ball for
Oof.
90 seconds and you're moving it back down the other
That's
way.
a lot of running.
That is 12 minutes of straight lacrosse. Notre Dame finally put one up a little bit after the 12-minute mark, and the quarter ended out 1-0. So as we were kind of mentioning before, huge defensive game there. And even then going into the half, it was 3-3. So we kind of saw a little bit of a back and forth. Notre Dame continued to stay on the winning side for most of it. They tied it up in half. And then after that, Notre Dame kind of kept the lead throughout the rest of the game. And Madison Ahern, we've mentioned her a couple of times before, which is not surprising. Top team. She's a top player for them. She was doing anything and everything to get to the cage. She is such a precise shooter. You put her on an 8-meter, she is going to score. It is a almost guarantee at that point. I don't even want to say that because that's bad luck, but I'll knock on something. She had an amazing game, 4 goals, and they needed her. Especially with Jackie Wolak, she was on a face guard, which I thought by UNC that was a really smart coaching decision. We've mentioned Jackie before. She's a very dominant player. She can pass, she can score, she can dodge, she can cut. So kind of cutting her out of that equation for Notre Dame, I think it shook them a little bit, especially in that first quarter. We saw they only had that 1 goal, which is not very characteristic for them. Jackie being Jackie, though, was able to get free at times. She ended up putting up 2 goals for Notre Dame in some crucial moments there. But overall, as much as it was a low-scoring game, we were able to see some really good defense step up between both the teams, which I think is something that they will need moving forward.
For sure. Yeah. Meg said it great. Notre Dame did win the stat game in all areas, especially free positions, being awarded 8 compared to UNC's 3, which is very interesting. I guess low scoring, 3 fits in, but interesting thing to look at and note there. Our next game was Maryland at Denver. Maryland won 10-8. Flashback to last year's matchup when Denver won 8-7. So Maryland had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, had a little bit of revenge to get back. But another close game. Last year they won by 3, and this year they won by 2. So interesting, pretty even matchup, I'd say. I would love to see that again later on this season. See if Denver could come out with a win, just with that revenge. And, they're starting to match up with each other more often, and they're a pretty even matchup. But Maryland dominated the draw. They won 16 draws. Denver only had 6.
That's
and you
huge.
know what they say.
You know what
You
they
guys
say.
know by now. Yeah, I would have been very impressive if Denver won the game with only 6 draw controls compared to 16, but you never know. You might win, you might not, and they did not.
You might win,
Anyways, yeah, Maryland was up 7 at half, so they had the lead from the beginning, and then 10-7 heading into the fourth. So shout out Maryland holding on to that lead, finishing out the game, playing 60 minutes. But I'd say that's a pretty even matchup. What do you think, Meg?
I was going to say, I think that that's a pretty even matchup. Even though Denver opened up scoring for the game, Maryland jumped right back at them, putting up 3, going up 3-1. Being up 7-5 in the half, that's a good lead, especially against a team that really relies on their defense. You kind of want to be up on Denver before the half ends. That should give you a good feeling moving into the third. Not to make you complacent, not to make you content, but just to know that you can work through this defense and you can continue to put up more numbers. And something that was interesting when I was looking through the stats was that Maryland had 20 turnovers compared to Denver's 13. I think that is kind of a little bit of a crazy difference there, especially to have 20 turnovers, still win the game by however many goals. They only won by two, but still to win the game by two, have 20 turnovers compared to 13. I think that's a big deal. Emily Sterling did have 10 saves, which was huge for Maryland. They needed that. And then someone else who we haven't really heard of, Victoria Hench, had a hat trick, which was exactly what Maryland needed that day. She had a hat trick. It was her fourth one in her career. So seeing her kind of come into her own, especially in a top matchup there, I think that's huge for her moving forward throughout the rest of the season. And, even though Denver fell short, Julia Gilbert still had a 4-goal game. This is stuff that they can work off of. And like we mentioned and have been mentioning, it's still early. Even though it's week 4, it's still early. There's still time to grow, things to change, things to work on. So this is another matchup that I am looking forward / kind of hoping to see down the line.
Yeah. Another game, Richmond at Navy. One that we thought would be a close and a top game. They are very close in ranking. However, Navy smoked them 14-5. They had no issue with Richmond. They handled them pretty well. Navy just won majority of the stats. Shots, Navy took 40 shots. That is insane. That is so many shots.
40 shots compared to 20 shots. That is, you just doubled up. Like, even if you had a subpar shooting day, you could still win that game.
Yeah, 40 shots is a ton. Richmond took 20 turnovers. Navy only had 17. Richmond had 24. They need to get that number down. That is not good. That is a lot of turnovers.
That's a killer there.
That's not going to help you. Cause turnovers, they were even. 12 each. It's a decent amount of cause turnovers. Draw controls, Navy won 13. Richmond had 9. And then free position shots, Richmond only had 4 and Navy had 3. Ground balls, Navy had 24, Richmond had 16. So majority of these stats, they won pretty clean. Navy ended quarter 1 up 5-1 and then just held on to the lead the rest of the game pretty much. They played very intense. I'd expect nothing less from Navy. They are very intense. They're very strong is how I like to describe them. They're just very fundamental, very strong and intense. They go hard, they go fast, and nothing really stops them. Richmond just couldn't match it. They couldn't keep up with them. So unfortunately, Navy is going to come out with a win in that game. But Emily, I have no idea how to say your last name. Meg, you want to take a shot at that? Messany? Emily Messany had 4 goals for Navy. Maggie DeFabio had 3. Sorry, guys. So, yeah, they had a great day for Navy. Really helped them come out with the win. But 40 shots is insane. That is so many.
That poor goalie for Richmond. I can't imagine how she must be feeling after that game. 40 shots on cage or not, the stress, or if they hit her, that's a lot. So thinking about you today. Moving on. One of our last games that we watched this week was Virginia Clemson. And before I get kind of into this, watching that game, so Clemson just built a new lacrosse facility. Beautiful turf, lovely stands, nice little building in the background. Beautiful looking facility. But their camera angle is so questionable. It's because most of the time if you're going to watch a game, it's kind of like a bird's eye view almost, but not that high up. But this field view level I felt like it was shoulder level almost, or a little bit higher than that. So I was kind of expecting it to look a little bit different, get that higher view, but it was very mid, so you couldn't really see what was going on down at the other side of the field. You could see everything in between the 30s, but whenever they were down on offense or defense on the ends, you couldn't really tell what was going on until someone scored or there was a turnover and they were running down the other way. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But to talk about the actual play, Virginia was up this entire game. They started out hot against this Clemson team. They put up 3 goals very, very quickly. And that was crucial, kind of pushing their momentum throughout the rest of the game. Clemson caught up. They had a pretty evenly scored second quarter. Clemson ended up playing a little bit better in that third quarter. But in the fourth quarter, Virginia took off, winning that corner in a 6-2 race. And something that I really loved about this Virginia game for them was that there was so many different goal scorers putting up multiple numbers. We had Carnivale with 4 goals. Morgan Schwab had a goal and 4 assists, logging 5 points. Kenzie Hogue had 3 goals. Kate Gallica, I'm so sorry, had 3 goals. Kate Miller had 3 goals. That is so many hat tricks to be had for this Virginia team. So that is so awesome to see these players working together, building confidence in each other, giving them the ball, especially Morgan Schwab having that many assists. She's a goal scorer. She can also feed. She's very dangerous on this Virginia offense.
Yeah. What a great ACC matchup. Would have been a huge win for Clemson. Big ACC win, but maybe next time. Pretty close game, though. Pretty good showing for them. Unfortunately, they just did not come out with the win. But, yeah, that I thought the same thing. And I saw a lot of people talk about it on Twitter, how Clemson's brand new, very nice facility. And there's a lot of complaints about the stream. So, interesting. Something you would think would be thought of when building the, especially like a big ACC school. You would think they would have a better production, but maybe
Agreed.
they just are in a work in progress there. Give them the
Very
benefit
true.
of the doubt.
Could be that.
Your
Could be
sister
that.
just scored, by the way.
Was it pretty? Actually, I don't care.
I don't know. I didn't.
It went in.
I
That's all that
missed
matters.
All right, so that gets us into upcoming games and stuff to look forward to this week. As we mentioned, Syracuse is playing Stony Brook right now. If you're watching the video version of this, either on YouTube or Spotify, you can see it right behind my shoulder. So if you didn't get to watch it and you want to watch it, just watch our podcast and it's right there. So
Right there.
there you go. What is this? Like a what's it called? Like what? Never mind. Just forget.
Oh, like a live.
I have
Like a
no
live show?
like
Live stream?
like if you were to videotape like a movie and then put it online. What's that called?
Oh, like on TikTok when they do that?
No. Like no, not like TikTok, unfortunately. No, Meg. Never mind.
We'll circle back to
Yes,
this.
so this is yes. Cuse for Stony Brook is a great game right now. As we are recording this podcast, it is 5-5, so very close game, and I am excited to watch how this ends. It is second half just started. And then Wednesday, we have Virginia versus Richmond, interstate rivalry, 5 p.m., and then Navy versus Drexel. Great game to keep an eye on. Meg, do you have any thoughts about these games so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think Virginia Richmond, when they play each other, in the recent years, it's been very competitive. You know, I think that being from the same state, it kind of gives them that little bit of a chip on their shoulder for each other. So in the past few years, it's been a great matchup, kind of going back and forth. Excited to see what they do this year. And I think Navy Drexel is going to be an awesome game. Drexel's kind of in a great stretch right now. They've been winning. They've been really feeling confident about themselves. You can see it in their play. Navy's been playing intense. They're having big wins as well. So these two teams are kind of coming into a stride together. So I'm excited to see them go head to head.
Yeah. Going back to this Stony Brook Cuse game, just a little insight. This is always such a big and like aggressive, like there's so much emotion behind this game whenever we play them. I don't know what it is, but anytime this game is happening in the Dome, like I'm gonna say it, this might be one of my least favorite teams to play. Not like I just
I'm messing with you.
I just I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I'm just going to be straight up. I don't like playing them and I don't like losing to them. Love everyone on the team and the staff. No hard feelings against them, but I just can't stand you, Stony Brook. But that's what makes for a good game. It's passionate and there's a lot of emotion behind it. So I'm very curious to see how this game plays out.
Me too. I think Stony Brook, they're a very, very great team. It's their identity. They really buy into it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows it. It's a very widely known thing. And, they're always out to prove something. So, coming into the Dome, that's them
Yeah.
trying to make a statement. And I know a lot of the Stony Brook players just because being from Long Island, you kind of know a ton of people. So they've got a really talented team this year. They've got a lot of veterans on the field. So definitely going to be interested to see how this one goes. I'm not really sure what's going on. I haven't been watching, but
Yeah. I haven't either.
I'm sure I'll hear about it at some point. So
Anyways, looking farther into the week, Thursday we have Michigan versus Ohio State. It's a good little matchup there. I think Michigan will be fine, but it's a big game in football, so maybe they can make it a big matchup in lacrosse too. I don't know if that will translate over.
yeah, I just think with the
Um,
Big Ten, it's a Big Ten game. I think Ohio State is gaining a little bit more confidence out there. So we'll see. I'm sure Michigan right now they just got a new ranking, which we'll talk about later, but
mhm.
they should be able to handle it. However, could be an exciting game to check into.
Cool. Then we have Northwestern Denver. It could be a good game. I don't think Northwestern will have any problem. One thing I would love to ask someone or maybe have onto our podcast as one of our guests to come is I want to have someone on that plays at a top school but has traveled to Denver and played at Denver. I want to know what that's like because to me that sounds awful with the altitude and the elevation whatever. Nah, maybe Denver's isn't that bad, but I don't know. I'm really curious. I want some insight on that. And I would also love to see how Denver girls, when they first get there, train. Like do they do something different or how do they adjust to that?
I could not tell you. I'm sure it's got to be something. They don't just
I'm
throw
gonna
you right
find
in
out.
there.
If anyone has insight, let me know. Hit my line. Anyways, going on, we have Duke Pitt. That's a pretty good matchup. Duke just took a hard loss to Syracuse in the Dome. So now they have another ACC matchup to bounce back. So that would be a good game to keep our eye on. I think Pitt could win. I think that could really go either way. That might be a pretty evenly matched matchup.
Yeah, definitely wanted to check into.
Um, Loyola Towson, another just around the corner matchup. That must be so nice. Like you get to play an away game, but wake up in your own bed and sleep in your own bed.
Exactly. I think the same thing whenever I see like if like Duke plays UNC or something. I'm like, wow, you
Hmm.
woke up in your own bed that day. That's so nice.
And you're gonna go to sleep in your own bed.
Yeah.
Um, Notre Dame UVA. That'll be a good matchup to watch. Could be a good evenly matched ACC game. I think they're very similar in their playing styles, but also in a different way. Like I don't know. Do you get what I mean? Like they're both very like fast and like upbeat and just like there's always something going and moving.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. They're very, I don't want to say the word mobile, but I think the word's active.
Yeah, I was gonna say like spazzy, but not in a bad way.
No, I feel like it's just active. Like on
Yeah.
offense, they don't stop moving. They're very quick between the 30s, which I think is it's really distracting for defenses. So kind of seeing, I don't want to compare them as much as like they're similar offenses because I think they're different in their own ways.
Hmm.
But I
For
think
sure.
it'll be a good game to watch offensively for those who play lacrosse or in college or who are working throughout the game. I think that's a good matchup if you play offense to kind of check into.
Then we have Lemoyne versus Sacred Heart. Keep an eye on Lemoyne, how their first season is going in Division One. Rutgers versus Penn State. That's a good even matchup, especially with the rankings. They're right there with each other. Yale versus UConn is also on Saturday. Hopkins Stony Brook Saturday. That will be a good matchup. I think depending how this game goes right now will give me a better feeling and idea of how the Hopkins Stony Brook game will go. But would love for Hopkins to win. Sorry, Stony Brook. And then we got Maryland JMU.
On
Um,
Sunday. Sunday
yeah.
morning, bright and early. Actually, it's not that early. It's 11 a.m. Wake up.
Well, that'll be 10 a.m. my time.
Well, 10 a.m. next time. You're right. I apologize for those who are not on East Coast time. You
Yeah.
get to wake up, put on some women's lacrosse, and it's going to be a good game, too. This is a matchup of
Yeah.
the quarterfinals last year where JMU, I want to say they won in overtime.
I believe so.
Yes. Or they
It's
played
all
during
sort
the,
of a blur.
yeah, or they played during the season, it was overtime, and then JMU won in, I have to look into it. But last time these two teams played each other, it was a very good game. So this is definitely going to be something that you want to tune into.
For sure. And then the following week, Monday, Stony Brook plays Denver. So we will recap that next podcast. But looking ahead, that is a game to have on your radar. That will be Stony Brook's got a few. This is sort of a little stretch they have right here: Syracuse, Hopkins, Denver, and then I'm pretty sure they go back to easy teams. Typical Stony Brook.
I would say the same goes for Denver, too. They're going on a Northwestern,
Yeah.
Stony Brook stretch here. So that's going to be something to watch out for. This is big travel for Denver and quick turnaround. So going to be excited to see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that gets us into the new rankings. Week 4 rankings just came out yesterday on Monday. So they have
Meg, what do we think?
Northwestern coming in at. They have Northwestern coming in at number 1. Poor JMU. I thought they were going to be 1.
I mean, if you look at the points, they're kind of right there. The difference
Yeah.
between the two. Northwestern had 612 points towards the first place position, and JMU got 595. So it's kind of right there. They were right there. So I think this week is huge for both of those teams.
Such an interesting ranking. It could just go so many different ways. Like 1 through. Interesting. Michigan above Loyola.
And they're both undefeated. I mean, Michigan's played more games, but
Yeah. North Carolina dropping to 8. Very interesting rankings. I don't even know what I think and what I want to say. But
pumped that we
looking,
still got in the IL women, we got Brown in the top 25. Love that.
Harvard coming in at 24.
4-0 for Harvard.
Who'd they just beat? Not Brown. Yeah,
Did they just
no.
play Brown?
They just had a good win. Hold on. I can't remember. They just beat. Okay, so. They lost to Georgetown. Lost to Brown. Oh, they just beat Yale. Wait.
Yes.
Yes. Wait.
No.
This is last year.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Because I was going to say, they did not play Brown that long ago. They just beat Brown 18-17. That's a huge win for Harvard.
Huge
Sorry
win for
about that, guys.
Harvard.
I should know that. Yeah. Not much change. Colorado in at 19. I guess they hung with Northwestern. Just the rankings are so different. So different. Yeah, Stony Brook would be playing Hopkins. Stony Brook being 11, Hopkins being 13. So those will be good matchups for Stony Brook. Those could go either way. What are your thoughts, Meg?
Yeah, I think looking at this top 10, looking at this top 25, it makes sense. Looking at this top 20 that we have here from US Lacrosse Magazine, I think they make sense. I think US Lacrosse Magazine having Michigan at 4 is really interesting. I do understand they're undefeated, but I'm not sure how I feel about the 4 spot for them. And I don't even know who I would put in that 4 spot. I mean, I could see Notre Dame there. I could see Cuse there. I don't know. I would put Michigan probably at that 5 or 6 spot. I don't think 4 really fits. And I would honestly throw JMU over the BC, over BC for the number 2 spot based on US Lacrosse Magazine. But yeah, I think I think they got it right here with their top 5: Northwestern, JMU, BC, Notre Dame, Cuse, Michigan 6, Loyola 7, UNC 8, Maryland 9, and Denver 10. So I'm liking the rankings this week. I think with everything that's going on in the lacrosse world and in the lacrosse games, it's got to be tough to choose this stuff. I mean, especially
Oh my
last
gosh,
week,
especially this season.
I would have been having a fit last week if I had to choose who was going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A fit.
Speaking of picking, picking rankings, but for us, speaking of picking who's gonna win the top games of the week, hello. You went 6-0.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm really proud of my teams. I think that they really, I think that they really showed up. And that's the first time that's
And
happened. So way to
yeah.
go. Way to go, guys. You rock. You made my entire week. I'm really glad we brought this up, actually. I was a little nervous we were going to leave it out.
So hot topic. W lacks nut. Actually, now that we know who they are, told me how to actually pronounce his Twitter. W. Oh, W lacks nut exposed himself. It only took us one podcast to figure out who was behind this account.
Wait, were
And
you
he
saying
came
that
clean.
the lax nut wrong the last time?
No, I've been saying it right. Just forget I said that. And now he also is the one that pointed out or made a comment that you got all your picks right and I did not. But
Thank
now that
you,
I'm going to
sir.
look back at his tweet, also just so everyone knows, this is all like fun and games with him. It was nothing, like no hard feelings. Great guy. Just is a big fan of women's lacrosse. But
And
yeah,
we love that.
I just
Grow the game, man.
needed to know who was running the account. But now I'm looking at his Twitter. He's talking poorly about the broadcast that's going on right behind me. Close up and sideline views are great though. What's with the hockey dimming of the lights on orange goals? Must we? Yes, we must.
Yeah, I don't even know if they did that when we were playing, but I kind of love it. I love
Sometimes
it.
I think they did.
I don't
Yeah,
remember
I think
it,
it's
but I
awesome.
think it just adds to the flair of the game, you know? You get the music playing when your if you score a goal, your song plays, the lights dim, the crowd's cheering. It really just adds to the atmosphere. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's a bad thing.
He also made a comment that he likes power play.
Instead of what? Oh, like
Man
women
up,
up.
woman up, person up, player up.
Oh, I
He
think
likes
power
power
play
play,
is too
so
hockey. Because it's a
yeah,
little bit too
not getting behind
hockey.
that.
But I guess no. I mean, it's also what we're used to, like have it be like woman up or man up. So when things change, it's a little difficult. It's a little difficult.
Yeah. Oof. Wow, this game is really good. Anyways, we have a few questions from you all that you have left on our little Google questions form. It's also in our bio. If you need to find it, please submit questions. Anything you have, we'll answer throughout each episode. So the first one, I'm going to admit, we've gotten this question multiple times from different people, worded differently. I do feel like this one was the best worded. So now we are going to address it because you guys are wondering. Multiple people are asking and are curious just on our thought process and our decision process. So the first question that we've been sort of just putting off for a while is, both of you were selected for the Athletes Unlimited College Draft. How difficult was the decision not to play for each of you? If the right opportunity presented itself, would you consider playing again? If yes, what would that opportunity entail? Meg, you can go first and say your reasoning, what your thoughts are, and then I will say mine.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, sure, no, I'll go first. Yeah, so watching Athletes Unlimited for women's lacrosse kind of grow, especially while what did it start? When we were in college? Like when we were freshmen?
Yeah,
It's only
right
like 3 years
after
old,
COVID.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the league's 3 years old. So watching it grow over the past 3 years has been really interesting. And we've had the opportunity to see a lot of girls that we've played with, played against, or looked up to kind of go into the league and build it to what it is today. So watching that has been really inspiring and really cool. And I think for my decision when it came to not playing in the league, towards the end of the season, I was dealing with a little bit of like an injury almost. Well, it was an injury, but I was dealing with an injury. And after I went to the doctor for it, I would only be able to play in that like last season of the league. So I didn't really see a purpose in playing. And at that point, my body was just kind of, it needed a break. And when your body tells you to take a break, you should listen to it because it's only going to progress from there. And then you get some overuse injuries, stuff like that. So I just opted out to not do it. Felt like it was the right decision for me at the time. And also with graduating too, there's a lot of, as you mentioned in like a previous podcast, when you graduate as a student athlete, a little bit of your identity kind of stays at college while you leave. So there was also those thoughts of, what's my next step? Like, am I going to get a job? Am I going to go into coaching? Am I going to stick with lacrosse? Like, what am I going to do? So it's kind of a lot of decision there going back and forth. And then on top of, my body not feeling great, I kind of just knew that what was right for me was that. And if the right opportunity presented itself, would I play again? I don't say like why I wouldn't play again. I love the sport. I love how much it's growing. We're seeing it everywhere, and playing in sixes a couple summers ago, that was a lot of fun. Seeing it go to the Olympics. There's just like a lot going on with lacrosse. So I wouldn't be like, no, I'd never play again. But if the right opportunity came around, I could see myself playing again. And what would the opportunity entail? I would kind of just want to maybe have a little bit of a different look from playing maybe regular field. I think box is really interesting. I think sixes is a lot of fun. I think AU Pro League, I like what they're doing. I just think for me and what I want to do with the rest of my life, I don't think being the league's played in Maryland, and I don't think that because when you play, you kind of have to stay in Maryland because you're practicing, you're playing multiple games a weekend. And I think just the direction that I want to go in my life, doing that and staying there for that period of time just isn't something that I think I could do. But I think if maybe there was a little bit of a difference there where I would have the opportunity to play, but also be able to go and do my job, I think that would just be a little bit more appealing.
For sure. Yeah, and so I think a lot of those are great points and great reasons, as well as I think something maybe they are trying to change. But yeah, like Meg said, um, towards the end of our fifth year, our last season, our bodies are just so broken down to the point where like I was doing minimal stuff in practice, if I was even practicing, just to be able to make it to the game to feel healthy and good for the game. So by that point, the thought of then going to stay somewhere for 5 to 6 weeks in a hotel and play 3 games a weekend, like I wanted to, but I don't think my body would have made it through. Like the biggest thing I learned from my ACL injury is listening to your body, and rest is just as important as like pushing your body or like getting stronger. Like rest is just as important. And if you think about it, we have been playing lacrosse year round since sixth grade at least. Middle school, we were playing fall, spring, and then we had summer club tournaments all the way until we were done with college. Like I had never, I haven't had a summer in so long where I didn't have lacrosse. I didn't have a workout program I had to follow. I didn't have any like obligations. And so I just wanted one summer to really enjoy, um, go on vacations I haven't been able to go on different trips, do different things I haven't been able to because of the lacrosse commitment. And so, unfortunately, when I was seeing how my first summer as a real person, a real adult,
A real
as
person.
sad as it as sad as that is, but like my first summer I didn't imagine myself being in Maryland for 5 weeks as badly as I wanted to play. Like Meg said, we've played with a lot of the girls in the league and against, and there are a lot of people I've looked up to, and like I would love the opportunity to play with them and alongside them. It just wasn't this past summer. If the opportunity came or presented itself again, I would strongly consider it. I do miss lacrosse and I miss being involved with it, and so that's a way for me to get back involved. But like Meg said, I do hope that it can be structured differently. I think ideally it would be awesome if it was structured like the PLL, where they are traveling to different cities on the weekend. Obviously, that's very expensive. I don't know if Athletes Unlimited is there yet in terms of funding and money because that's very expensive to do. But again, I have a real job now. Like I work a 8 to 5, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know how I would just go somewhere for 6 weeks, stay in a hotel, do my job, but also practice and do these games. So I don't really know how girls were doing that. I think maybe majority of them are coaches or had remote jobs, but would love to see something new come out or a different structure. I think a lot of it was that way from COVID, which is why they were in the hotels for 5 weeks. But obviously that's not a thing anymore. So I'm sure it's probably a lot of money and sponsorships, funding, that sort of stuff. So I would definitely consider it if the opportunity came about. But yeah, my body was not in any shape or form to sort of go play lacrosse again for 5 weeks, 3 games a weekend. That would just be actually insane. I think my body would have just given up on me. But next summer, if it exists or not exists, if it presents itself, something I will consider and rethink because it would be fun to play alongside all those girls that I've either looked up to or have played with or against.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of girls re-sign too, so it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this summer too. And what we're saying, it's not to kind of like say, oh, like we were just not going to play. It's kind of just more, if you saw us in those last like 3 weeks of practice, me and Meg were maybe doing one or two drills and then sitting out. It really wasn't, it just wasn't what was best for us and our bodies at the time. And, but like Meg said, I think it'd be something definitely strongly considered. But I'm definitely looking forward to watching, even if I'm not playing. It's a really awesome league and it's really, really great for the sport. And I love to see what these athletes are doing because it gives you the opportunity, especially in AU. It's run by the athletes. So your voice gets heard. It's an amazing thing to see. And they have a couple other sports there too, like softball and volleyball that are in the
Yeah.
Athletes Unlimited umbrella. So it's a really awesome thing. I just think for us at the time, it wouldn't have been the smartest decision.
Yeah, definitely had to give my body a break, let it heal, figure out what I was going to do with my life, where I was going to live and work. And so taking 5 weeks out of my 3 month summer would have been a little, I don't know. I mean, I would have figured it out, obviously, but it just wasn't the right time. So obviously we will see next summer what happens.
Yeah, well, we'll
Anyways,
check back in.
yeah, if you guys have any more questions about that, feel free to reach out to us, but I think we covered it pretty well. Next question, least favorite place to play at?
Louisville.
I was going to say Louisville too. For sure, Louisville.
We've talked about this before, I
Louisville
think,
or
too.
yeah, I think when someone asked us our favorite place to play, we also covered our least favorite, Maryland. Don't really want to
Oh,
play on
yeah.
that AstroTurf, the
Louisville
field
has
hockey
that
turf.
train. So does Pitt, though, but Pitt has a
Yeah.
nice view of the bridge. But the train, when it goes by Louisville, is like so loud. It's really distracting. So maybe it's a home field advantage for them. But for me, my brain just done. Like, train goes by, I
Yeah.
watch the entire thing go.
Yeah, I'd say Louisville, pretty straight up. Looks like their facility though, like lacrosse facility right next to the field looks nice.
It
Just
does look
the
really nice, yeah. It's
um
just the field.
yeah,
I don't know.
you got industrial revolution going on. All right, next question. So there were a handful of questions about my ACL injury and recovery. Obviously, that's me, not Meg. But you could also talk about your perspective from your sister going through it. But for me, I'm not going to make this long at all. Feel free to message me if you have questions or if you're going through it. I'd love to talk to you about it. But my ACL injury. Okay, so the question is, what was your ACL injury slash recovery like, and what was one of the biggest things you learned? Um, Wow, it really taught me patience. I wouldn't say I fully have learned it yet, but it tried to teach me patience, and I had to let it sort of teach me that. It's a long 8 months, and so that is, I think, one of the biggest things. The other thing is what I mentioned in the previous question is how important rest is for your body. As athletes, and especially nowadays with social media and everything that goes on and what we see online, like we are very go, go, go. I need to work out. I need to do this. I need to eat this way. Like, no, that literally got everything out of my mind. It taught me how to prioritize rest as just as much as working out and getting stronger. Um, Rest does more for your body than like working out will do. So that is something it taught me the most. Like, I don't feel guilty anymore when I take a day off from working out or I like literally when I rest because I know my body needs that. And then another thing that it taught me is how important like having a support system was. So obviously having my team there and like the other girls that were going through it with me at the same time were huge. Me and my best friend Jay Brown, who plays at Stanford, she and I were 10 days apart in our surgery, so we literally went through everything together, same doctor, pretty much same rehab and like physical therapy place. And so having that and just having someone to talk to about it, relate to about it, just someone going through it with you or that has been through it was huge. I think having a support team, family, friends, loving your PT because you're going to spend so many hours with them, your trainer, your doctor. But yeah, family, friends, just having that support was the biggest thing. And then other than that, I'd just like emphasize how important rest is for your body because at the end of the day, you're just worn down, broken down. And so resting is very important for you. And that is something that us athletes struggle to really comprehend and actually value.
Yeah, and if you knew Meg, not to say like pre ACL, but rest was something that she did not know. She was
No,
someone who
never.
was always on, she still is always on the go, but like even just in a more so sense, she was always on the go. So seeing her kind of transform that way was really, really interesting. Um, and yeah, I think what Meg was talking about, the support system and watching people go through it with you, and just from like an outside perspective, seeing the girls go through it together, they were always talking to each other, like asking how they're doing, what's working, you know. And
Hmm.
obviously, it's something to consider that I think sometimes kind of gets forgotten in the moments of it is that everyone's recovery is different. Everyone's body is built differently. So things that are going well for some people, it might take you a little bit longer to
Yeah.
get there. And I know just from watching my sister go through it, like the comparisons, especially if you're going through it with somebody, sometimes that can get really dicey, especially when, you know, maybe they're
Hmm.
progressing somewhere where you're not. And just keeping in mind that this is your recovery, it's your journey, and you will come out of this how you were supposed to, and you're going to be the same player you were or better. You kind of have to keep that positive mindset going. Getting sucked into that comparison is just such a negative bubble. And I think Meg can probably speak more on that, but like it's just such a negative bubble to hang over your head like that. So that's just something that watching, you know, people go through it, it's just something that I've noticed.
For sure, especially like if you're going through it literally together, same school, same trainer, like side by side comparing each other, it's going to be so just like toxic for you as well as like getting like just beaten up over the fact that if they were riding a bike a few weeks in and you still haven't gotten there, like that is their own body, your body's different. You're going to progress at your own pace, at your own like time frame. And so just knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, patience literally one day like you will turn the corner eventually. It just takes time to get there and it's frustrating because you just want to feel like normal again. That was my biggest thing is like I just wanted to walk. Oh my God, that just reminded me. Went and surprised Meg. When's your birthday again? When did we surprise
Did
you?
you just ask me when my birthday was?
Yeah, I don't know birthdays. July?
Yeah.
End of July, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and we came like a week before your birthday or something.
Yeah. Meg came July
So
21st. My birthday's July
yeah, so
28th.
I was
Thanks, Meg.
1 month post ACL surgery, and I could not walk to save my life. I literally could not walk. I am traveling from Texas to Long Island. I flew to Baltimore, drove with Alex Marino. I sat in the backseat of her car with my legs out as she drove us to Meg's house on Long Island, and we surprised her. Then we go to the beach. Obviously, we're in Long Island during the summer. We go to the beach. That might have been one of the hardest things I tried to do was one, walk on the sand. I couldn't walk, let alone the sand was on fire. I was
It was
going
really
so
hot.
slow. I couldn't walk on concrete. There was no way I was getting around on sand. And then had sand all over me. I wanted to go in the water. Like I just wanted to go in. The smallest wave knocked me over. I had sand everywhere. Literally everywhere. Oh my God, that was like the that was insane.
No, looking back
Um,
on it, that was probably the least smart. I don't even want to say the word. Like the worst place that I could have brought Meg. I was like, I wasn't even thinking. I was like, oh, like she's moving,
yeah,
like she can go. If you, I feel like
yeah,
everyone's walked on sand before, and it's not easy to do, and especially when it's
no,
literally on fire. You have to like run to get like, wherever you want to go. If it was like to the beach hut or to the bathroom or whatever, you have to run because
yeah,
if you don't, your feet are gonna fry on the sand. So poor Meg is like hobbling, and I'm like trying to like not sprint. I'm like, no, it's fine. Like you're so close. Um, but yeah, so if you are a month out of a lower body injury, do not go to the beach.
don't recommend going to the ocean.
Don't go.
Um, but yeah, lots of tears through the process. It happens. It's good to get those emotions out, but it will get better. There is light at the end of the tunnel. It can be very long and frustrating because you don't feel like you're making progress, but I promise you are. But yeah, support system is huge and just be patient. I was not, and I was miserable. I'll be honest. I asked my parents. They were like, "What is wrong with this girl?" Um,
Yeah, Meg went through a bit of a phase, but it's all right because that's
here we
the
are.
journey. That's the journey. And she had a good
Yeah,
support system around her.
yeah. It can get scary, but here we are. We made it through 2 seasons later, and I'm still alive. So,
The other day, Meg
last
ran
question.
like 10 miles, so
Oh my God,
anything's
I haven't
possible.
ran since because my knee hurts. So we're not doing that
But she
again.
did it though. She did
I
do it.
actually just saw a doctor today because it shouldn't still be hurting. Anyways, that's a different
It's
issue.
another story.
Last question. Last question. Who was your favorite team or player to play against?
My favorite team to play against. I like the
I don't
competitive
like have a
games.
yeah, I love a competitive, but I also love a good blowout. I don't really have like a player that I'm like, oh, I love playing against her. I'm like, what? I
Not
I
like a
mean,
player, really. Because I feel like I don't think about it like
I
that.
love playing against a team that played zone defense. That's my answer. Any team that
That's
played
a good
zone
one.
defense, literally give me it. I want to play them every
Love
single
you
day.
guys.
I do it with my eyes closed too. But I loved a zone defense. So those were Virginia Tech usually played zone.
They had
It
an
was that
interesting zone though. Theirs was like different
yeah.
for a while.
Like if a team started against us in man to man and we got them to go into zone, easy.
Game over.
Game over. But yeah.
I don't know. I think either way, I think zone's more fun to play because you get to see more creativity. I think
Mm-hmm.
where man to man, it's a little bit more fundamentals. So I don't really. I think I like playing zone better than man. Also, my arms have less bruises after we play zones, so that's always
Yeah.
great. But I guess my favorite team to play, just because of the competitive atmosphere, had to be like a Maryland UNC, and then I, yeah, I mean, like playing Northwestern was always fun. Playing BC, I don't think I
Hmm.
can choose a favorite. Any game that's
Yeah,
going to be competitive that I'm going to be like in the zone for, that's a team that I want to play.
I'd say Maryland and UNC. Just because I feel like we go so far back with them. I mean, we do with all the teams, but like the win against UNC at UNC just felt huge, felt bigger than any like time we've won at Northwestern. Um, but yeah, Maryland got some beef with them because of when they canceled one of our games. So we drove down there and played them at home. We can talk about that next episode though, because that is a story for another time when we have more time.
It's a good one too, so you'll want to hear it.
Yeah. But that's a wrap for today. We were supposed to have our first guest on. It is a surprise. You don't know who it is yet, and you won't know until that episode comes out. But we had a little bit of a scheduling and travel conflict. This person is in season right now. So, as you guys know, it can be very busy balancing school, traveling, lacrosse, treatment,
All
whatever
that
it may be.
stuff.
She is a very busy girl, so we got to find some time to lock it down with her. But we do plan on having some guests. I think we're 4 weeks into the season, so we only have 7 weeks left, 8 weeks. Yeah,
Something like
so
that.
we plan on having a handful of guests in these following episodes. Just will be tricky getting those locked down with their schedules, but stay tuned. We plan to have our guest on next episode.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Maybe before that. Maybe we'll come out with a segment before, a little short segment. Um, yeah, we do plan on having guests. So if you have suggestions, ideas, who you want on, who you'd like to hear from, and any questions you want to ask those people, feel free to send that our way. But for now, that's all we have. And this game is still very close.
Yeah, make sure that you guys send us those questions you might have. You can even ask about games that are going on. It doesn't just have to be about us or rules and whatnot. We want to hear everything. We love hearing your thoughts. So please don't hesitate to submit them to us. And we have a lot of lacrosse to look forward to. We have a really exciting week coming up. Make sure you guys are tuning in, watching these games. There's so much to learn about your own game, about kind of filling in that team role, growing your IQ, all that fun stuff. And we are really looking forward to next episode. Make sure you guys are subscribing to us on YouTube. You're following us on Spotify and Apple. And follow us on Instagram too, because we post some good content there. And that's a wrap for week 4. We will see you next week for episode 5, week 5.